There is something that beats silently within us when we meet someone who already feels part of our soul. It is as if time stops, the veils between worlds lift, and for an eternal moment, we know that something greater is at play. Deep down, we understand. Certain encounters are not by chance. They carry a profound call, an echo of something perhaps already lived before. When two souls are destined to unite, no external obstacle is strong enough to impede the natural movement of that reunion. The invisible forces that govern the collective unconscious, as Carl Jung taught us, continue working in silence to bring about this fusion. This video dives into that mystery. What happens when two souls are fated to meet and merge? If you feel that nothing can separate what is true, comment, "What is mine finds me." Carl Gustav Jung's analytical psychology offers a deep lens through which to understand encounters that seem written between the lines of destiny. When we speak of souls destined to merge, we are entering the territory of the collective unconscious, where universal symbols and archetypes shape timeless human experiences. Jung believed that our most significant relationships catalyze the process of individuation, the inner journey toward the wholeness of the self. In relating to another, especially to someone whose soul seems to resonate with our own, we are led to see what was previously hidden within us. The shadow, a central concept in Jungian thought, emerges intensely in these bonds. The other person begins to reflect repressed, unrecognized, or idealized aspects of ourselves. Soul fusion, in this context, is not an idealized romance, but a profound alchemical passage in which inner opposites, masculine and feminine, conscious and unconscious, seek integration. Jung called this integration conjunctio, the sacred marriage of internal polarities. Moreover, projection is inevitable in these encounters. The soul sees in the other what it wishes to complete in itself, but over time those projections begin to dissolve, revealing the true work, to love the other not for what we projected onto them, but for who they really are. When two souls are destined, they attract each other not only by affinity, but because they mutually awaken the impulse to grow, to heal, to transcend. Nothing external can prevent this union, because it obeys deep internal symbolic laws, louder than time and space. Thus, destined encounters become sacred mirrors of the soul, calls to transformation and wholeness. On a deep, often invisible level, our most striking meetings are woven by something beyond logic and conscious choice. Jung named the collective unconscious that psychic dimension common to all humanity, a reservoir of symbols, primordial images, and archetypal experiences that transcend cultures and epochs. It is in this vast symbolic field that significant encounters are gestated, guided not only by life's coincidences, but by a synchronistic meaning that points to a wider, hidden purpose. When two souls are destined to merge, that movement responds directly to the inner call of this deep unconscious. Such encounters do not happen by chance. They are mutually attracted by invisible resonances vibrating in the collective psyche's field. Archetypes like the lover, the twin soul, the anima and animus operate silently, generating intense and often transformative connections. That is why some people, upon crossing our path, stir an inexplicable familiarity, as if we were reuniting with someone who has always been with us, even though we have never met before. That sensation is the collective unconscious, manifesting through a personal, unrepeatable experience. For Jung, these encounters activate the individuation process, for they confront us with something greater than ourselves. It is not merely romantic love or superficial affinities, but experiences that challenge our deepest existential questions, testing our beliefs, wounds, and habitual worldviews. The person we meet becomes a symbolic mirror of our deepest layers. When such an encounter occurs, there is often a sense of destiny, as if we were responding to an ancient script written long before our consciousness awakened to it. Here, the concept of synchronicity, another essential Jungian idea, gains prominence. Synchronicity is the simultaneous occurrence of events connected not by causality, but by meaning. When we meet someone with whom we feel an overwhelming, inexplicable connection, that event carries the mark of synchronicity, as if the universe conspired to make it happen. It is not mere coincidence, but the symbolic materialization of something already existing in potential within the collective unconscious. Understanding that the collective unconscious operates through symbols and archetypes, we realize that significant meetings are essentially invitations to consciousness. They lead us to inner places we might never access alone. The soul of the other serves as a key to open internal doors, bringing to light psychic contents that need to be seen, welcomed, and integrated. This symbolic function of relationship is one of the greatest gifts of the collective unconscious. It not only connects us to another, but reconnects us to our deepest essence. Furthermore, the collective unconscious creates a kind of magnetic field in which certain experiences are destined to occur. When two people carry complementary archetypes or similar wounds, crying out for healing, they are drawn to each other with a force that defies rational explanation. This call transcends conscious wills or moral judgments. It simply happens because it is inscribed in the invisible fabric of the human psyche. The soul recognizes the soul, and in that recognition, the ego's boundaries begin to dissolve. What remains is the sense of return, of encountering something that has always existed. That is why when two souls are destined to unite, they will find ways to do so, even if they must traverse labyrinths, ruptures, and distances. The collective unconscious will keep operating in silence, gently nudging them toward one another until the union becomes inevitable, not by external imposition, but because it belongs to a deep, ancestral, sacred inner movement. Every profound relationship begins with a mysterious spark. Something in the other attracts us almost hypnotically, as if that person carried exactly what we were seeking, even without knowing what it was. To Jung, this is the phenomenon of projection, a psychic mechanism by which we attribute to another the unconscious aspects of ourselves. In destined encounters, where soul resonance exists, projection acts with even greater intensity. That which we have not recognized in ourselves or have yet to integrate is perceived in the other with emotional and symbolic force. At first, projection may seem magical. We see in the other the ideal image of what we believe will complete us. If we project our anima, the unconscious feminine principle in a man, or animus, the unconscious masculine principle in a woman, the other becomes the embodiment of ideal love, wisdom, strength, beauty, or mystery. This idealization creates a bridge between souls, a channel through which deep energies flow. However, that bridge is also a field of tension. What unites can, over time, reveal the differences and wounds masked by the initial enchantment. Projection, though illusory, is not a mistake. It is a natural and necessary stage in the process of self-knowledge and relationship development. Jung did not see projection as purely negative, but as an invitation to consciousness. When we project, we are actually recognizing, albeit unconsciously, elements of ourselves that scream for integration. The other becomes a living mirror, reflecting not only what we admire, but also what we fear, reject, or have not yet known in ourselves. Over time, and this is inevitable, projection begins to fade. The idealized image gives way to the concrete reality of the person before us, with their shadows, limits, and contradictions. Here, many relationships break down, for the projective enchantment dissolves and frustration sets in. Yet in truly destined bonds, this moment is crucial. It marks the transition from unconscious love to conscious love, a love no longer dependent on illusions, but sustained by acceptance of the other's wholeness. Dissolving projection requires courage, for it means seeing oneself more clearly. We realize that what we admired in the other may be a dormant quality in us waiting to be acknowledged, or conversely, we see that what irritates or challenges us is a direct reflection of something we have avoided in our own interior. Thus, the other ceases to be a passive receptacle of our psyche and becomes an active partner in the individuation process, someone who helps us see who we truly are. Projection can also manifest inversely, when the other projects onto us what they seek or fear. This creates complex and often painful dynamics. However, in destined relationships, these mutual projections are not insurmountable barriers, but portals to truth. As we recognize and work through these unconscious layers, the bond strengthens, not as dependency but as genuine companionship. It is important to understand that projection never disappears completely. It only transforms. The more consciousness we have of our unconscious motivations, the less we become captives of idealizations. Simultaneously, we learn to love more freely, because we no longer demand that the other save, complete, or heal us. They cease to be the solution to our lacks and become a companion walking beside us on the path to wholeness. In the end, projection is the starting point, not the destination. When two souls are truly connected, they withstand the disenchantment process without falling apart. On the contrary, they pass through this portal with greater depth and surrender. The love that survives the dissolution of projections is one that knows shadow, imperfection, and silence, and yet chooses to remain, because it understands that the true miracle of the encounter is not blind fusion, but lucid mutual recognition. There comes a moment in every deep bond when initial beauty gives way to tension, friction, and the revelation of what was hidden. It is at this point that the shadow emerges, the set of repressed, forgotten, or denied aspects of ourselves that, as Jung taught, do not disappear but lodge in the unconscious, waiting for an opportunity to surface. The meeting of destined souls does not shy away from this confrontation, it intensifies it, because true fusion between two souls is only possible when each is willing to journey into their own underworld. This descent into the shadow is what transforms love into true alchemy. Meaningful relationships are, by nature, mirrors of the unconscious, and when shadow projects onto the other through irritation, jealousy, anger, or pain, it is because there lies a wound within us begging to be seen. Often we blame our partner for causing us suffering, but the pain predates the bond. The other merely triggers what already existed within. When we understand this, love ceases to be an escape from pain and becomes a fertile ground for healing. Jung said that no one becomes enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Applied to relationships, this means true intimacy begins when we are willing to see and show our shadow. This demands brutal honesty, vulnerability, and courage. That is why many retreat. But when two souls are truly connected, the bond does not break at the appearance of the shadow. It matures, for it is no longer based on projected perfection, but on shared truth. This truth includes our insecurities, traumas, fears of abandonment, rejection, or control. It also includes our repressed aggressiveness, our needs, and our difficulty in trusting. When the other becomes the mirror of that dark side, the first impulse is to flee or to attack, but transformative love does not react automatically. It observes, it breathes, it recognizes discomfort as an invitation to grow, because shadow, as painful as it is not the enemy. It is the raw material of psychic transformation, what alchemists called the prima materia, the substance needed to begin the transmutation process. In this sense, love between destined souls becomes alchemical, not because it transforms the other, but because it transforms us through the other. The relationship becomes a sacred laboratory where emotional poisons are distilled and transmuted into consciousness. Each crisis, conflict, and emotional rupture carries within it an opportunity for purification. And the more we face these moments with openness, the more room we make for true love to flourish. Not the kind sustained by unrealistic expectations, but the kind that emerges from acceptance of the whole being. It is important to emphasize that this process is not gentle. The soul's alchemy demands losses, grief, and symbolic deaths. We must relinquish control, the idealized image of ourselves and of the other. We must acknowledge that we are not only light, but harbor monsters, emotional addictions, defense mechanisms, and inherited patterns that sabotage us. And the greatest challenge, we must allow the other to see all of it. When we succeed, when we reveal ourselves completely and are nevertheless embraced, something truly healing happens. Shadow ceases to be a shameful secret and becomes part of the shared narrative. This kind of love is rare. It demands a high level of consciousness, surrender, and presence. Yet it is precisely this love that destined souls seek, not because it is more romantic, but because it is more real. It is not sustained by the desire for fusion, but by the willingness to individuate. Each becomes more whole, more authentic, more aligned with themselves as they remain in relation with the other. And paradoxically, the more we become ourselves, the more we can love deeply. Love that integrates shadow is liberating, because it does not impose perfection, but invites authenticity. It recognizes that the other's soul mirrors our own unconscious, and thus honors each confrontation as part of the process. What begins as passion can become initiation. What seemed only an encounter reveals itself as a path, and on that path, shadow ceases to be feared and becomes loved, not for what it destroys, but for what it teaches. Individuation, according to Jung, is the process of becoming what one essentially is, a totality integrating light and shadow, conscious and unconscious, inner, masculine, and feminine. It is a solitary journey by nature, for it concerns the individual's deep relationship with themselves. However, when two truly connected souls meet, something extraordinary happens. Individuation, though still an internal process, unfolds in a shared field. The bond between these souls becomes a space of mutual transformation, where one's growth fuels the other's growth. In this context, twin souls are not halves completing each other, but whole beings recognizing each other. Each arrives at the encounter with their own path, pains, and history, and carries both the search and the resistance to their own wholeness. Their meeting acts as a catalyst. Something awakens, something moves. There is a call to transcend the persona, the social mask we wear to function in the world, and to dive into the soul's deepest truth. Thus, the relationship ceases to be a refuge from life and becomes an essential part of the soul's maturation process. Individuation within a bond does not mean becoming independent of the other, but free within the relationship. When two souls commit to their own internal evolution, they do not require the other to achieve what they must conquer themselves. They neither expect to be saved nor project responsibility for their happiness onto the other. Instead, they offer the relationship a space where authenticity can thrive. The other's presence becomes support, not crutch, mirror, not prison, loving provocation, not disguised control. It is in this space that a conscious relationship is built, one in which each supports the other's journey, even when it involves difficult phases, internal ruptures, and moments of crisis. Rather than stifling natural cycles of transformation, these souls become guardians of each other's freedom and depth, and that freedom does not threaten love. On the contrary, it strengthens it. For the closer the other comes to their essence, the truer the bond becomes. Love at this level is neither static nor possessive. It is dynamic, alive, constantly renewing itself. Individuation within such a deep connection also means navigating conflict zones with a new perspective. Instead of seeing differences as threats, they become understood as complementary parts of a whole. What the other brings, their way of thinking, feeling, reacting, is an invitation to expand, not a demand for change. Discussions cease to be ego battles and turn into rituals of growth. Each impasse becomes an opportunity to deepen self-knowledge and strengthen the bond, not by uniformity, but by accepting internal and relational diversity. This shared journey also reveals one of the most subtle and powerful aspects of love between destined souls: the commitment to truth. Not objective truth, but the truth of the soul. This kind of love does not pretend, manipulate, or repress. It invites honest expression of what is felt, even when it hurts. It embraces imperfections and allows each to speak with their own voice. Because it knows that true existence requires being who you are, and that loving someone truly also means allowing them to be exactly who they are. When two souls are destined to walk this path together, there is no room for masks. They meet not only to live a love story, but to write together a journey of expanding consciousness. The relationship becomes fertile ground, where the seeds of individuation bloom most intensely. And so, despite the challenges, distances, and confrontations that may arise, a silent force keeps this bond alive, because it does not depend on the ego, but on the soul. In the end, we understand that individuation does not estrange bonds, it deepens them. For a soul that recognizes and fully accepts itself has greater capacity to love truly. And when two individuating souls meet, they not only build a relationship, they create a sacred field of consciousness, where every step, every pain, every reunion is part of an ancient, infinite dance toward wholeness. The encounters that truly matter are not chosen by the mind, but recognized by the soul. When two souls are destined to merge, no distance, time, or external circumstance can prevent it, because these meetings answer to a deeper order dwelling in the collective unconscious and guiding our inner journey in silence. As Carl Jung taught us, every true relationship is a mirror of the soul, a call to dive into one's shadow, integrate opposites, and continue on the path of individuation. And when two people accept to walk that path together, with truth, courage, and love, they do not merely live a story, they live a transformation. Love born from mutual soul recognition neither idealizes nor imprisons. It illuminates, it reveals, it heals, and above all, it frees. If this content touched something within you, it is because your soul also recognizes the depth of these encounters. Subscribe to the channel to keep exploring topics that expand consciousness and delve into the human soul. And click on the video appearing on the screen now. It is the natural continuation of this journey. Your path is only beginning and it is sacred. Never doubt what is yours finds you and stays.